Hello, gamers and GameStop employees listening for research. This is the Film versus Film podcast coming to you from the outer world in Burbank, California. I'm your host, Quinn Boys. I have played around a dozen video games in my life and seen the movies made about all of them. And I am joined, as always, by my co-host and friend, Leonard Smith Jr.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Leonard Smith Jr., and obviously I'm angry because video games suck and they are made to cheat, and I fail. But I blame it on the hardware and not the user. We're here to talk about video game movies today, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, we've both picked two movies from 1995 with very popular video games associated with them.
I chose a movie that was based on a video game,
and I chose a film that had a video game based on it. It both count.
What film is that?
Well, before we get into it, we want to judge this video game movie episode. We should introduce our guest, the host of the Call Me By Your Game podcast, my friend and yours, Conner McCabe. Conner, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you both for having me. I'm really excited to break a heart today. I don't know whose it's going to be, but someone's heart's going to get broken.
Well, you're obviously an authority on video games. Maybe the authority on video games. Yeah, in
fact, I prefer it if people refer to me as such, as the authority on video games. I like to have I like it when I have power and people have less power. So, yeah, I'm the perfect person to make this judgment today.
Do you like if people call you a gamer? I know sometimes that has negative connotations. Do you have a preferred?
I don't mind. You can call me a gamer. That's fine. I know that that's a nuanced word. It carries a lot of identities with it. And I'm just one of those identities, which is someone who really enjoys games.
Have you ever been a GameStop employee?
I've never been, but I know some former GameStop employees. If
they probably were bad people because they cheat you.
What is that? Leonard is coming in hot. Do you have like a bad video game experience?
You obviously have never played video games with me, Quinn. If anyone out there is listening has played with me, they can attest to my passion and living in the moment. It's a roller coaster ride. There is a Twitch stream of me and Rod Benson playing Madden 21 on the PS5 when it first came out, and it was bad.
I listened to the crossover episode that immediately follows that Twitch battle, and that was like watching friendships go through multiple cycles, and it was really fantastic. So shout out to Rod and Chris.
Two former guests. That was a therapeutic. I don't know if in a good way episode, but
you got a lot out
in video games.
There's a lot worked out though, but that's important. It can be hard to be honest about your feelings and your emotions, and you really did that day. So congratulations.
We really did.
We've established that Conner is a gamer. I enjoy the odd video game, although I'm not current. Leonard gets frustrated by games, but undoubtedly Leonard and I are two cineists. And Conner, when it comes to films, do you feel the same level of expertise as you do with video games, or where are you at?
That's a great question. I think the last couple years, the mental illness that I've had that is like video game obsession that is really developed, and the collecting and all these problems I have, I think I'm now definitely more knowledgeable about games and the history of video games. But I went through, I'm a filmmaker, so I've been there, buddy. I went to film school, and I love movies, and I still occasionally get the chance to make something. But no, dude, you guys are the champions of the video game history here.
We wouldn't expect you to compete on our level with films. I've seen over 24 films in my life, so I'm not expecting everyone. You don't have to reach that bar.
Sure.
And I'll stop dragging my feet. Leonard, you set me up earlier, and I threw the ball away. But I picked...
he buried the lead. Well, he didn't bury the lead. He just got rid of it.
Let me dig it back up. I picked my favorite video game movie, my favorite James Bond movie,
Wow.
my favorite movie of all time,
Whoa.
The 1995 Martin Campbell, director of Green Lantern, Pierce Brosnan classic, GoldenEye. GoldenEye.
This movie truly encompasses you, right?
This movie is responsible for a lot of the way that I am right now. And
you're a big hacker, right?
I am suave.
You're kind of known as the hacker of the improv community, I will say.
That's true. I changed one of my improv grades from a B+ to an A-.
Yeah.
And
and you know what's funny is that I got to see a lot as the host of Tuesday Night Thunder, see a lot of teams perform, got to see you both perform a bunch. Quinn, there's something that kind of made me uncomfortable that I felt always happened to you was like people would just like, you know, you would walk into a scene and someone would be like, oh, the hacker's here. And I thought that was like sort of, you know, pigeonholing you a little bit.
Yeah, I was gifted that persona a lot, but it started to feel burdensome because then I got to put on my fingerless gloves and start clacking away.
Yeah. So I just
Plus
wanted
it's
to
tough
say
to
that,
come
like,
up with like little riddles and for passwords for possible passwords.
You can only say "I'm in" so many times before people stop believing you.
So yeah,
believe me, buddy. No one's believed me when I've ever said that.
Let's talk about this GoldenEye film and your affinity for it and why you think it's a great video game film.
I'll just give you a short pitch on the movie, and Leonard is alluding to the fact that I cheated. GoldenEye, when it was released in 1995, was not based on anything other than being a James Bond entry. It had a video game, GoldenEye for the N64, which came out, I think, 2 years later.
Wow.
But I don't give a fuck, Leonard. Video game movies are bad. And I chose, I think...
a bad movie.
No. Okay, this is going to be contentious. I chose my favorite James Bond movie. It's the first one I ever saw. It stars my man, Pierce Brosnan. It's a new Bond for the new era. This is the first post-Cold War James Bond movie. It's not your Sean Connery buttoned up James Bond action film. It's bigger. It's more personal. It's got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of feeling.
It's got hacking.
It's got some hacking. It's got the classic mid-90s Jurassic Park problem of there's always a hacker in every movie, and that stuff doesn't age well. But I think judging James Bond movies as you should, I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing how your level of familiarity and knowledge with both Leonard and Connor James Bond movies is. I've seen all of them. I'm a big James Bond guys, but
the Bond countdown you posted when Sean Connery passed
yeah,
away.
I posted a whole embarrassing Instagram tribute when Sean Connery died. But it's
you got to pick.
It's
your
the best.
Instagram
It's
tribute.
my favorite one. It's got the best villain. It's got great side characters. It's got a great first James Bond mission. It's got a great fight scene at the end on top of satellite. And to pivot to the video game for a moment. The video game, part of what makes it so cool and supports the movie and vice versa, is that the levels of the video game are based exactly on the story. So you can really, that was the first game of its kind which was based on a property, and clearly they did their homework. They were like, okay, this is the dam level. This is the satellite level. This is the level where you're running through the forest. All of those levels have analogs to the film, and I think it enriches the experience of both. Before we move on to your film, Leonard, Connor, what is your James Bond familiarity level?
I have pretty shallow level of experience with the Bond films. I've definitely seen pieces of some of the Brosnans, although I can't always tell you which ones they were. But I've seen all of the Daniel Craig ones, and went to a couple midnight premieres for those movies.
In a tuxedo?
I used to be big into midnight premieres, but I like the new, I guess, newest set of Bond movies very much, even though I know they're kind of hit or miss. But what about you, Leonard?
Mm-hmm.
I would say I'm probably a novice when it comes to the whole Bond experience, but I loved Casino Royale. I love the Daniel Craig.
Also directed by Martin Campbell.
I love the Daniel Craig Bond movies. They're much more like sleek and like kind of dark and just cool.
Yeah, this is pre-reboot in the James Bond terminology universe. They rebooted the whole series with Daniel Craig. So I think a lot of people our age or younger have the familiarity with those movies, the 4 Daniel Craig movies. And there are 20 movies preceding all about,
And I was exposed young to Bond because I went to this gifted school with a bunch of nerdy white kids. And I just remember one birthday party, one of my white counterparts, one of my white friends who was a very smart individual, very fun guy, loved James Bond. And we literally watched 8 James Bond movies one night or something, on a day and sleepover. So I know I've seen a bunch. I don't really remember them. I was very young. I know I saw GoldenEye at some point. I didn't remember any of it. The experience of watching it was wild.
I will say the biggest, I love the James Bond series. I've seen all the movies. The best grift of the James Bond movies is that there's 24 of them and maybe 8 of them are actually good. If you were to recommend, no other series gets by, maybe Star Wars, where 75% of the movies are not good.
Yeah.
Except James Bond, because they plot them out that every time you get a few stinkers, there's a good one, and everyone's like, we love James Bond, and then it buys them some time.
It's wild.
This, it's I contend, is a good one.
It seems like this James Bond series plays by baseball batting average rules, where they're hitting 350, and it looks pretty good, because 350 is a good number. But when you compare that, if it was actually a basketball winning percentage, it'd be bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of funny because with my movie, it's also a series of films. 2 films.
They made a sequel to this?
Oh, yes, they did.
I have the less Mortal Kombat knowledge than you have. Oh, God, I just
buried the lead. There you actually buried the lead.
Leonard, please go.
My film was Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat. All right, anyways.
We don't have the rights to that song.
Could you do that again? I actually couldn't hear what you were saying.
I'm joking. Mortal Kombat. There's also Mortal Kombat Annihilation. There will be a 3rd Mortal Kombat movie coming out in 2021. I believe it's a reboot.
What do you have, a Google alert for this?
Oh, yes. Mortal Kombat. It is a movie that was created based on the game Mortal Kombat. It came out in 1995 as well. It was PG-13. I feel like it should have been rated R, but the original version was, the script was a rated R version, but they made them tone it down so they would make it and it would be morally widely accepted and sought after. It is, a very simple movie. Mortal Kombat is a very simple game. It's one person versus another person, that side view, 2D, whatever look. And
it's an arcade video game.
Yes.
You're supposed to play it standing up with a roll of quarters.
I just want to apologize to all the gamers out there and the
console
employees. Obviously, we don't know what we're talking about here.
It's a console game, isn't it?
Is it really?
I don't know. It was both, I guess.
I didn't have anything pre-N64. What was it for the Sega Genesis?
I never had money to play at the
Connor,
arcade.
help.
I think it was. I think it's also. They had arcade versions of Mortal Kombat. I don't know which came first, but yeah, it's a side-scrolling 2D fighter.
2D fighter,
okay.
Exact side-scrolling 2D fighter.
And GoldenEye is a first-person shooter.
Yeah, and this was a video game movie based on a side-scrolling 2D fighter, and they had to do something. And I felt like, honestly, from what they were given, they did a great job. I feel like it is very simple to where children can enjoy it, adults can still watch it for and take it in. And I loved at the beginning of the film. They start out. The first shot is a side scroll 1 versus 1 shot. It was cool. It is very simple. They lay out the plot lines early. They lay out the storyline early and everybody's wants, and then they get to the action. It is kind of slow building, but once they get all the story and the plot out, the action ensues. And
the back half of this movie is just fight to fight to fight to fight.
It's a Mortal Kombat movie. That's what you expect. So It was one of like it was one of the 5 VHSs that I owned, and as a child, looking back, I probably had a very weird collection. It was like Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat 2, Street Fighter, Flubber, which I never watched.
With Maury.
Flubber, which I never watched.
What?
And then I want to say like Mighty Ducks 2.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, on this podcast, when you were talking about The Sandlot, you talked about that actor who's in both the Mighty Ducks and plays Kenny DeNunez in The Sandlot. So shout out to that guy. He's fantastic. In those
Kenny
sports
DeNunez is popping up all over
Jesse.
this
He
podcast.
plays Jesse in the Mortal Kombat. I mean, in the Mighty Ducks movie.
So
on the show, we put our movies up against each other. We have certain criteria that we set forth and determine
guiding posts.
What's that?
Guiding posts.
Guiding posts.
Yeah.
Normally, we would go through and talk about each point, each criteria. But, we're going to talk about these movies and bring those up while we talk about them. Connor, let's just see, how did you feel about watching these 2 movies?
And also, Connor, I'm just Connor. Before you say a goddamn word, no. If you want to also talk about your experience, if you have any, it sounded like you maybe had seen these movies all the way through for the first time. So if you want to talk about your experience with the games, you would, I think, have a better perspective on that than we would.
Yeah,
as well.
Absolutely. So these, I actually, do you want me to share about my movie history with these 2 as well?
Please.
Okay, great. So I know I have seen pieces of GoldenEye throughout my life, probably at a friend's house, but we never owned it. We weren't like a big James Bond family or anything. But it was as I was watching it, I did sort of like remember like certain images would look very familiar to me. But I definitely tried to watch this earlier in quarantine and stopped watching it. I don't know why. I can be like,
I know why.
I don't mean to start any arguments on the show, but
well, that's what we're here for.
It's kind of like watching anything. Like I sort of need like a reason to do it because I've become really bad about making time to watch a whole film. So that's probably why.
Mm-hmm.
Mortal Kombat, after watching it, I wasn't sure if I had seen it all the way through. I've definitely seen this movie all the way through at a friend's house growing up, on VHS as well. So that's my experience with both of these movies. But as far as the games go, I have played a little bit of Mortal Kombat. I've never been big on like the 2D, the side-by-side fighters.
It's a button mash game. Is that like
I'm
unfair
a
of me to
masher.
say? Not to jump in, but every time I've ever played Mortal Kombat, I don't know. I never took the time to learn like A plus B plus Z is a combo. I'm just literally throwing my dead fingers at the controller.
I just want to throw this in. I feel like if you play this game, you're either a button masher, which was me, or you're very precise and you know what the fuck you're doing. And it's literally 2 separate leagues. It's like you're playing either college, you're either playing like YMCA rec ball, or you're in the NBA.
Yeah. I think you're totally right. And this reminds me a lot, while I haven't played this game very much, a game I finally got into this year for a different podcast was Street Fighter. And I was playing Street Fighter 2. And I think they have similar mechanics where, yes, so many of the directions and button combos can do things, but I don't know what those do. So I am very much like Leonard, where it's like, well, I kind of know how to jump, so I think my kick does this. I'm going to duck here. But for the most part, it's just wild flailing from me. And then as far as GoldenEye goes, I definitely played this game growing up. I never owned it. I have Perfect Dark on the Nintendo 64, which was made by the same company and is... I've heard it's a little more polished, but I don't know from personal experience. But
Perfect Dark is like, that was the game where people would be like, oh, you like GoldenEye?
Yeah.
Perfect Dark is like the shit.
Yeah, it was made later, too, like 3 years later, I want to say.
And GoldenEye, I think, has more of the cultural cachet, but a lot of the hardcore GoldenEye heads will be like, you got to play Perfect Dark. It's the same mechanics, but slightly updated.
I feel like the heightened version of that then was like Halo. It was like, you like Perfect Dark, you got to play Halo.
That's another thing I'd like to talk about. Like, in the era of the N64, maybe even into the PS2, but like pre Halo, pre-Xbox. This was, I think, I'm not saying it's the best necessarily, but this was the king of the multiplayer first-person shooter. You'd get an N64, you'd go over to your friend's house because no one had 4 controllers by themselves. And then you'd like put the controllers together and you'd just play 4 screen or 1 screen but divided into 4s. And you'd just run around the temple shooting each other or throwing knives. And that was like the pinnacle of the experience in the late 90s.
It was, and it was before, it was like right as Mario Kart 64 was going to come out, and it was still before Super Smash, which would come out 2 years later. So this game on the Nintendo 64, the only console at the time with 4 controller inputs, was like the group multiplayer console. I got to play that a little bit with a friend, and I'm pretty sure this is a game where I beat my friend's older brother growing up. Like I don't know how the teams worked, but I beat him, and then he slapped me in the face. So
What?
This guy, he has grown up a lot, but he had anger issues and ego issues. And when I must have been like 10 and he was like 13 or 14, I beat him, and I think I like made fun of him, and he just like open palm slapped the shit out of me.
Wow, he pimp slapped you.
He did, and so that's like my most visceral memory from this game.
Wow.
How can it not be?
Yeah.
If I lose, it's because Connor got slapped in the face as a 10-year-old, and he associates negative things with GoldenEye.
So you're saying you did not own a Nintendo 64, or did you?
I did, but not this game.
I'm shocked that you owned a Nintendo 64. I thought they just like gave you this game, GoldenEye,
Right.
and Smash when you bought an N64, and then they were like, build out your library as you see fit.
I'm going to call Nintendo later and complain because I didn't get my copy.
I also own a Nintendo 64, and
Nice.
yeah, this was like, I wasn't a Nintendo guy. I didn't have a Super Nintendo. I like had the original Nintendo, then I had the Sega Genesis, then I had like the Sega CD.
N64 was my first console.
I consider myself a Sega guy or whatever, but like that 4 controller ports it just truly was a game changer. Mario Party was so much fun. Like, and it was like I played Doom a little bit, but then going from Doom and then be able to play like, because it's just you against the computer, but then being able to just play your friends and talk shit, it was I fell in love because that's what it's all about. But also, speaking of like anger issues, I never slapped anyone in the face, but I wasn't like, and my sister's like 9 years older than me, and she like moved out like early, so it was like I basically was like an only child. I would break controllers, and then I'd be like, "Well, don't have that controller." And like, and when I say controllers, I mean like 2. I broke 2 controllers, but it's just like you get mad, you throw your controller, and then you're just like, "Well, now I see the cause and effect."
Absolutely.
My brother and I, because like GoldenEye, my brother would always kick my ass. My brother's just better. He's my little brother. He's just better at video games than I am. But we would play Smash, and that was more evenly matched. Okay. And I would play as Kirby, which has its own connotations for people that play a lot of Super Smash Bros. Kirby can fly. Kirby is cheap. But I would beat my brother, who would usually play as Link or Samus.
Nice.
And oftentimes fights on Smash would just be like translate into like you'd see the screen and one of us would win, and then you pan out and we're like now fighting it for real. Like it would just be a lot of like grappling.
Round 2.
I also played a lot of Mortal Kombat because it was just simple. It was easy. 2 people, 1 person. I played all fighting. I played all 2D scroller fighting games.
I really only ever played Mortal Kombat, and maybe some of these memories are Street Fighter, and maybe this is why I thought it was strictly or originally an arcade game. But I played it like at Fuddruckers or whatever. Like I never had a console that had Mortal Kombat, and maybe that would have given me, if I did grow up with it, more of an affinity for it, and I would have watched this movie Mortal Kombat and not been like, what the fuck is this?
It was one of like the 3 games I owned on my Sega Genesis. It was like Mortal Kombat, Madden 94 or something, and like something else.
Well, this will be, I guess, a little bit more of a free swim, and we'll kind of circle back towards the end about where we think hits what criteria or whatever. But like, Connor, did you want to take some space, and then we'll jump in about what you thought about these movies watching them now that you had a purpose to watch them?
I would love that. I would also like to start by asking you two a question, which is,
Please.
Why would you make me watch these two movies in the same week? These are two of the craziest movies I've seen in recent memory. I truly came into it thinking that there's no way Mortal Kombat could be, or no way GoldenEye could be any close to as crazy as Mortal Kombat would be, like what I remembered. But they're both pretty nuts movies. They're kind of like the action, a lot of it really, I had such a good time the last two nights. Like, so I watched these back-to-back evenings. Thank you, YouTube, for letting us rent these films. But I am just so surprised at how, like, both of these movies lean, I shouldn't be surprised, but they lean so heavy into...
They're 90s action movies.
They are.
All the way.
And it was amazing watching... I watched GoldenEye first, and while I think in that first scene where Pierce Brosnan and Sean Bean have gotten into that like facility, and Sean Bean's been captured, and Pierce Brosnan is like trying to avoid the 80 Nazis or whatever who's in there. They're not Nazis. They're
Russians.
They're Russian.
Communists.
Yeah, commies.
Soviets.
But all of like the stunts, I felt like I was just watching like the next level of Indiana Jones stunts, and I mean that in a good way. Like they weren't the best, most polished stunts like you're going to see in movies today, because we're 25 years in the future, 26 years now, but they were also charming. Like the way
There's
guys
some good
would
practical stunt work, like that. In the same intro that you're talking about, they really do ride a motorcycle off a runway after a plane. They cut, and then the guy uses his parachute. But like they did that.
You are very right. The stunts in this are wild, but I will say this, and I put it down as a note: the stunt double editing is awful. It is so bad.
What do you mean?
It was so clear that it was not Pierce Brosnan. And so they just like held every shot like a second too long because they wanted the real shot. But it was like, that is not Pierce Brosnan.
Well, obviously he didn't jump down the dam, but someone did that, and that's an incredible stunt to open a movie. That free drop.
There was some driving stunt doubling edits that were bad. There were just some bad stunt doubling edits. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, fair enough.
I was also equally amazed with the stunt, even watching it today, or in today's age, having seen so many crazy things because I've lived a crazy life, guys. It was amazing, but I was also like, all right, I've got to officially suspend disbelief now. And this movie has put itself at a slightly, saying the word crazy feels reductive, but it's I don't even know what I'm trying to express. I was like, okay, this could be weird. Is what I was.
Or as I would say, it's wild. It's wild as fuck. I also watched GoldenEye first.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did because it changed my perspective of Mortal Kombat. If I would have watched Mortal Kombat first, I probably would have felt differently. But GoldenEye is extraordinary. That's the word. It's extraordinary.
And I'll say this, like, I think I'm not trying to say you guys feel the way you feel for any reason. I certainly can't argue that the stunts are not nuts, over the top, whatever. I will say that in the 2000s, when they recast Bond and rebooted it with Daniel Craig, there was an emphasis on like making the films feel grittier and more realistic. They just went the Batman Begins approach.
Yeah.
And I think that works in Casino Royale. I think it works less well in some of the subsequent movies, but whether or not you like them, I think they successfully reestablished James Bond as a little bit closer to a Jason Bourne. I want to see that this guy can really do these things. So even though like climbing a scaffolding to go after a guy in a construction site like in Casino Royale is over the top, someone could do it. This movie is like, I'm flying. It's more of a Schwarzenegger action movie. And I don't think you should hold it against the film because that's what James Bond movies were. They were over the top action thrillers, basically since GoldenEye or Goldfinger. And that was more consistent. It's more consistent with the 90s. I think people look at it now and they're like, James Bond doesn't drive motorcycles after planes. And it's like, well, but he did for the most part of the James Bond movies. He was doing over the top shit like that.
I feel like when I think of James Bond, I think of like sleek, seductive. Like the 60s James Bond is like, it's action, but it wasn't crazy. Like, I just don't understand how you start out a movie with a motherfucker going into like some Russian plant in some mountain.
I will say the Connery movies are where they establish like Blofeld is in a hollowed out volcano and a bunch of ninjas are dropping in. Like, so there's some of that in the Connery movies. Not every Connery movie.
Yeah.
This motherfucker they chase him out on the tarmac. He's just like, wait, stop, let them go. And he just like, all these people, this motherfucker is a superhero because apparently bullets don't ever hit him. If you're 007 and you're just running, you don't get hit by bullets.
Yeah, it's some stormtrooper shit.
Yeah, it's some stormtrooper shit. But just to start out the movie the way they did, I literally was like, how can you top this?
Yeah.
Like, this is wild. And they do. They just get...
I agree.
Well, the previous Bond movie had come out in 1989. They thought they were going to lose like the license for the film or the copyright or something. So it was, the Cold War ended. James Bond was always doing like Cold War shit against Russian. That's why they set this movie, that the pre-title sequence is technically in the late 80s. And it's supposed to be like James Bond is back. And then the rest of the movie, we're going to introduce him for the 90s. That's why they have a female M. This is the first Judi Dench Bond movie.
Oh, really?
And she's like dressing him down. There's that scene in her office where she goes, "You're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur." So it's a wink and a nod. I would say it's very self-aware, and I have come to appreciate that a little bit more than some of the Craig movies, which I think could use some more of that humor. They could use some more of that over the top because they've made them a little bit bigger, the Craig Bond movies. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't work with him because Daniel Craig is the serious, straightforward James Bond. I feel like Brosnan can be silly. He can be kind of action. You know, that fight scene with Trevelyan at the end on the antenna is just as visceral as like any other Bond shit. But it also has all this outlandish, over the top stuff.
That fight scene was the creation of parkour.
They would eventually pick up in Casino Royale years later. You know what's funny that I didn't realize that the same director did. You said he did Casino Royale as well.
Same
correct?
guy. He launched two very different James Bonds.
That's so interesting because it makes my thought is going to make sense to me in retrospect, which is after finishing this and like thinking about all the beats and it just being stretched out, I was like, this felt sort of like a Daniel Craig movie, in the Daniel Craig Bond, in the sense that I felt like I was getting all of the same stuff. And it was just sort of the 95 Pierce Brosnan version. But and I don't mean that disparagingly, I liked it.
Yeah, you could tell watching it that there was a formula that they were either not, I don't know if like from old Bond movies, but a formula they were trying to follow. And the beats did work really well. Like, I felt like the Q scene was perfectly timed.
Q scene is great.
It was perfectly timed because it was just like, all this super wild and like heavy kind of shit kind of happened, and it was like, oh, this lighthearted.
Don't touch that.
Yeah, it was
it's my lunch.
I love that. Yeah, that was the one-liners in this were pretty funny. You know, James was very cheeky. Mm-hmm. You know, very clever.
Also, that sandwich, can I just say, was all bread. That was like one big roll.
All bread.
There was
probably not good for 85-year-old Desmond Llewellyn to eat that whole.
Plus,
sandwich.
he's 85. He's gonna die anyway.
There was like a piece of spinach hanging out of it.
It was
definitely a prop
mayonnaise.
sandwich.
It was totally a prop sandwich. I just want to note out some things.
Yeah, I got some for Mortal Kombat. We'll move on. But
took away from GoldenEye. Maybe it follows under the how well does it hold up? So Bond gets off to breaking off basic bitches. Like, he breaks them mentally and then he rocks their world. Like, he's this weird sexual deviant. What's up with that?
That's the character. What do you mean? Like the lady who's evaluating him?
Yeah, that shit was wild. I was
better
like,
answer
so
for this, Quinn.
You like to break these women mentally and then seduce them.
Hey, she was sent to evaluate him, all right? He didn't seek this person out.
Also, the hand behind the head force kissing was wild to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. And just like, there's just a lot of plot holes. It's just like, why don't you, when you get them, I know it's a Bond movie, especially the girl. I know you don't kill Bond. You kind of like want to tease Bond and make him feel bad because he's such a like dick and like you want to rub it in his face.
Yeah.
But the girl, they could have just killed her. They're like, there she, like there was multiple times where they had her. It was like, why are you transporting her around?
You're talking about
she's a witness.
The Russian girl later?
Yes, the Russian, the Russian computer IT analyst, whatever the fuck person. They just like,
you're talking about Natalia.
Yes, Natalia. Just kill her. Why are you transporting her around? And then the Sean Bean, whatever the character is, like
006.
He gets off to fucking chicks that Bond used to fuck? Is that the only reason why they kept her around? He's like, I like to have what he's had.
This is why I think GoldenEye is one of the best, because 006, the villain, Sean Bean, Alec Trevelyan, he's like the nega Bond. He's the same thing, but he's
Bizarro Bond.
the evil version. So yeah, like Bond, certainly this movie tries to reckon with his sexism and chauvinism, which you can't really. But like Trevelyan will like kiss people against their will. Like Bond will charm. Yeah. I think they're conscious of it. I guess that's all I'll say. Whether or not they like accurately, whatever. I liked that Trevelyan was like the mirror image, the dark mirror image.
Speaking of that part, there's the one where like Bond is hitting on Minna, whatever her name is, when he's like about to meet M, and she's like,
Moneypenny.
I think this accounts as sexual harassment. He's like, what's the penalty for that?
And she goes, someday you have to make good on it, which is not the penalty for sexual harassment.
Who wrote this?
He's absolutely operating from a different time than we are in now. And it's like, just because he's so, and it's funny because I don't know how much they've tweaked this in the newer Craig movies, but he's just like, it's not a second thought. This is how he operates. He's going to keep working it until it works out for him, sort of thing.
But it was also nice because the whole Boris kind of sideline, like
Alan
side
Cumming.
story.
This movie is a great cast.
Yeah.
Alan Cumming, Sean Bean, we've mentioned Judi Dench,
Hagrid from Harry
Hagrid, who
Potter.
plays Valentin Zukovsky, who's one of my favorite. I love that scene where he like sits him down and his girlfriend is singing in the background, and
Yes.
there's a lot of great scenes in this movie.
I think it was like a big
Joe
Bond
Don Baker
film, and it
as
was
Wade.
coming back, so everybody wanted to be a part of it. I just felt like the writing, it just felt like a bunch of bros were in a room together and were like, ooh, what other cool thing can we add to this movie? Ooh, and then he does this. But I understand your affinity for it being a child and seeing that
when you
movie.
watch this movie at 8, you're like,
exactly.
no movie will ever have everything that I want in a movie again. You're like, I've seen the pinnacle of cinema.
Yep.
And those affections stick. Sorry, Connor.
No, no worries. I was also so pleased to see that it opened with like an abstract, wild Bond credit sequence.
Written by Bono and The Edge. I'm a big U2 guy. Sung by
Tina Turner, right?
Sung by Tina Turner,
that was
but
Tina
written
Turner.
by Bono. So all those songs about like, if I had him, I would have let him out. Like that's Bono, right? Like, what does James Bond mean to me sexually?
It's so funny. I wonder what drug trip got him to finalize that draft. Does Bono do drugs? I don't know. But yeah, I loved that abstract opening. I was like, oh, this is giving me it was so immediately familiar. So I was just kind of like locked in, even though I maybe haven't seen this all the way through before.
Yeah, I think it's one of the great Bond title sequences, and it nicely transitions. Like you see all this Soviet imagery, kind of like the hammer and sickle, all these statues tumbling to signify new era. I could talk about this for 4 hours, but Leonard, I think it's only fair that we open up the floor to Mortal Kombat. And Connor, you should get us started there. What was your film specific? What were your thoughts?
This was just like a roller coaster that I was on, and it was so fantastic because I'm only familiar with the biggest characters from Mortal Kombat, like Sub-Zero and Scorpion, basically the two of the masked people.
Yeah, they did those guys dirty in this movie.
They did, but they're also very.
They had to for it to work.
Yeah, they were kind of scary though, and I remembered them from being a kid. But anyway, my overall feeling was that it was such a roller coaster ride, and there was a point in the movie where I think it was the first time they actually play the Mortal Kombat theme, which they play at least 3 times.
The first time is right when the movie starts. It was like the Sony logo.
Yes,
and
that's
it was just
right.
like
Instantly.
And I was like,
So
you're hitting me with it really early.
just in case you're not sure what you're going to see, but not that moment. I think it was the next moment actually where they do it and a fight actually breaks out. I had a reaction like I was 6 years old. I live alone. I only live with my cat, so I don't interact with a lot of people anymore. But that song came on, and I just was like, doing karate moves in my living room. Like, definitely, I'm sure that some were offensive and I just didn't even realize it. But I was, like, having such a ball. And, like, my cat was, meanwhile, just, like, staring at me. And I was like, I'm going to do this till the whole song's over. And did it again. I was like, wow, this movie just, I did not expect it to get me so hyped, but it did.
Well, because it's like, it's just someone, it sounds like, can we talk very briefly about the guy that said, it sounds like he's shouting, but his parents are asleep in the next room. Like, it's like, Mortal Kombat. Like, he doesn't sound like he's really letting it go. And then it's just techno dance beat.
This song, by the way, I played this game growing up on the computer called Microsoft 3D Movie Maker, which is where a lot of my the first time I really ever told stories. And I would do a lot of the same tropey things, or just like pull lines from movies, pull music from movies, and just animate these scenes. But in every single movie that I made, up until a certain point, there was always a fight scene, and that was the same song that played in every movie, was just Mortal Kombat. As these like 3D models that you can't even really differentiate when they're too close together would just like swarm.
I like any film that has a fight scene that starts with a character saying, "Let's dance," and this movie had at least one of those.
I feel like from what they had with the game, which is a very simple game, they just kept that in mind, kept that in heart. They kept it simple. It was like, all right, what if you're a person who loves the game Mortal Kombat, what do you want? What would you want out of a Mortal Kombat movie? Obviously, a lot of fighting.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to hear the catchphrases that you hear in the game. Obviously, you want to see the cool tricks that they can do, the special powers that they have.
Their special moves, yeah.
And it's just like, for them to do this movie, they can't really hire actors. They have to hire people, true martial artists who can also act. And I feel like they did a pretty good job of that. And I just felt like it was simple. It was like, all right, who is this character? What is their want in this film? What is their plot? Next character, what is their want? Next character, what is their want? Next character, what is their want? Let's try to wrap our minds around this. I feel like you were saying earlier, like, you have to choose to believe, like, what was happening with GoldenEye. It still was like, all right, this is the real world, and this just kind of feels over the top and a little too unrealistic. But with Mortal Kombat, it's kind of fantastical. So
it's the outer world, bitch.
Was the outer world, which I don't know why they would call themselves Outer World if they're just a regular planet, a regular world.
I don't understand where that is located, if it's underground or in another dimension or in space. But
they tried to come up with some like fantastical story, which does play a part in the game. But I felt like for what they were working with, I felt like they did a great job.
It's like the classic case of having to make a plot that really has nothing to do with your actual game to serve the movie. But
right.
That being said, and I will piggyback on what you were saying, Leonard, was like I had to suspend disbelief for James Bond. I was already doing that as soon as I turned on the movie for this, so I was there for it. I think someone could watch this movie with like too serious of a lens or like try to be a grump, and you could pick it apart. I think you could do similar things for GoldenEye, but if you are just willing to have fun and it was such a blast. Like, I'm not even a Mortal Kombat person, but the first time that the bad guy says fatality, I was like, yeah, he said it. He said it.
And I'll say the scenario that you're pitching, Connor, which is that someone watching this movie with an overly critical lens, everyone makes this joke, but it still makes me laugh. This movie was directed by Paul Anderson, better known as Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yes.
Who does a lot of, I think he did some of the Resident Evil movies. He's kind of a schlock B-movie sci-fi director.
Real schlocky.
A little schlocky, but I would say that's his brand, and God bless him. He's been steadily working.
Yeah.
But I always think there's some Paul Thomas Anderson completist who just watched Boogie Nights and is like, what else has this guy done? And then puts on Mortal Kombat because they didn't look closely enough. Like,
That's so funny.
This guy made There Will Be Blood. Like it's
But it's like
alternate name for Mortal Kombat. There will be blood.
To put in Mortal Kombat and see some convoluted like realistic story. Like
no, there's nothing realistic about this movie. I would say my favorite of all the ridiculous backstories is not Liu Kang, who's trying to avenge his.
I already know who he's gonna be.
Trying to avenge his
murdered
brother,
dead younger brother,
and it's not Sonya, who is trying to find the man who killed her partner, and
from ear to ear.
That Veronica Vaughn.
One little funny quip about that wonderful little quip about Kano is
Kano, the worst prosthetic fake eye.
It was the 90s. Is he is actually English born, and he lied to the producers when he auditioned and told them he was Australian and used an Australian accent, and they really thought he was Australian. And in future games, he was actually supposed to be from I think like Ukraine or something like that, or even maybe like an Asian country. And they changed it and changed the storyline in the games to make him Australian because of the movie.
Weird.
Yeah, and it took me totally out of the film.
Sorry.
My favorite, of course, is Johnny Cage.
Hell yeah.
Who has the all too relatable Hollywood problem of people don't believe he's good at martial arts, which I think is the same thing that happened to Jackie Chan when he came to the U.S. It's all the time. You have to prove that you really are a martial art master.
Johnny Cage dealing with the same prejudices as Jackie Chan is.
I thought you were going to talk about how Johnny Cage walks off the middle of a movie set. In the middle of the movie set, it goes to fight a
I was going to talk about that, and then I rewound, and the director said, it's the last shot of the film. So technically, that director who looked exactly like Steven Spielberg, like they had the tricks. It's like, Steve, are you going to get this last shot of it? Like Steven Spielberg is lucky he didn't sue. He's like, I'm not going to be directing any shit Johnny Cage is in.
Johnny Cage, as much as I was like on board for this movie and whatever ridiculous things would happen, at first I was really turned off by him. And I was writing down notes like, oh, they wanted Tom Cruise, but they got this guy. and I was just annoyed by him. But he ends up, to me, being like the comedic relief of the movie, which I did not expect. And it was like so on the nose that it became funny by the end.
Yeah, it was weird because he was like so ridiculous, but also he was the straight man a lot of the time.
Well, what's that one where he like kills? Is it Sub-Zero? I don't remember the melee of fight scenes at the end, but he kills him, and then there's a signed headshot of his that like lands.
Yes. So you're not an avid player of the game. That was one of his fatality things.
Right. I assumed that was a move from his game. I would say the best performer, the most expressive performer, the character that I felt like I could see his performance the most was probably Goro, the giant ogre with 4 arms. I don't know if that's an actor, if he's entirely CG. Obviously, it's a human voice, but like Goro was, I think, had the most depth in this film.
Okay.
When Johnny Cage fights Goro at the end, and it's supposed to be like, you know, the big fight scene, and he just hits him in the nuts.
Yes.
Does Goro have 2 testicles or 4? Do we think?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this: he has a big dick for sure. Big dick.
This plot is basically Space Jam. It's like these people need to compete in this martial arts tournament, or else our world is enslaved.
Yeah, he was like, "Why are you on this boat?" They were like, "Oh, so you're telling us just some regular people are going to save the world?" He's like, "Exactly." Yeah. Let's talk about Raiden's.
Oh my gosh,
accent or whatever.
It's Christopher Lambert.
Yeah.
Wow, did he get nominated for an Oscar in this role?
It comes and goes like mid-sentence sometimes.
How would you just? I don't even know what he's doing.
I would describe him as a proto Gandalf. Like,
I described him as a generic Werner Herzog.
He's also kind of like he might be part snake, but we don't know it.
He's like part thunder, right? They always show lightning in his eyes.
I'm trying to even like think of how
he's
to
thunder
impersonate
and lightning,
him.
the god of thunder and lightning. But like I don't and like just the way he spoke and like he ha ha ha, like it was so weird. It was weird. The character was weird, but I didn't understand it, and I think he was supposed to be an Asian man, but whatever.
I was guessing that same thing happened to that role.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what Raiden his like, I don't know what nationality that relates to, but I was looking at this and I'm like, this character, he's not doing a voice. I mean, he's doing an accent, but he's not, I don't think he's playing a different race. And yet I was like, this feels wrong.
Yeah. He may have just been playing an alien, but it felt off for sure.
Yeah, because if you're going to be like God of Thunder, like, is he supposed to be Greek, but he's like got the long hair? Like, they kind of have him look like an old samurai, but again, they never explicitly
he's got
say
kind
he's
of one of those straw hats almost too.
That's true. Yeah, yep.
And also Sonya Blade. He's like, I have something special in mind for you, Sonya. And like, the whole Sonya Blade character didn't make any sense.
Classic damsel in distress at the end of the day.
We just need you for the scene where you're in this tight little dress and you're strapped up and held prisoner. But like I said, they build the story, they build whatever plot they tried to make, and then it's just straight fight scenes. And for it to make it work, these people with powers, the deaths, none of the way they defeated all the other like people from the whatever realm made no sense. Like the way Scorpion dies, I guess when he like reveals his skull, he instantly has different aura because then lava just starts coming out of him when he cuts him open, and then the whole Sub-Zero thing is like that first scene where he comes out and the warrior is like, and then
Leonard is doing intense martial arts.
Literally knew he was about to die.
Yeah,
and it was just like, how do you compete with that? And then it's like, if you just use the elements of human life, and like I just didn't understand.
Princess Katana. They both look like both of the male leads win a woman at the end of this movie.
She put those mop buckets out there for him to throw that water onto him. It made no sense. But I will also say it was two different moments. The moment where the guy is about to fight Sub-Zero that I was just talking about, and then the moment where the whole fucking building is collapsing, and at the end of the movie, and he's trying to get the satellite so they can steal the money or whatever, which is also a crazy plot, and the plot of that is wild. But the dude's like, shoot him if he moves. The whole fucking place is collapsing, and he expects this man to just hold a gun at some hacker.
Oh, we're back on Bond now.
And possibly die. I never understood it happening in movies and books and whatever shows. The soldier who follows orders when literally who still follows orders when everything is falling apart all around them. Mm-hmm. It's like, get the fuck out and survive. Who gives a fuck about Boris and getting this fucking money? It's over with. It's done.
That's true. I mean, like, I'll give you a more like, obviously when Bond drops Trevelyan from by the way, that satellite was a real satellite that just collapsed in real life. A couple months ago, if you may have seen it in the news.
Yeah,
that was it looks like a James Bond thing, a satellite that rises out of like a lake and it just is fully operational. That was real. That disc just dropped and crashed down, much like the end of the movie. And I was Joe. I hope Trevelyan wasn't under it. Blah blah blah. It's ridiculous that he would have survived that fall even for a second. I think the dummy's legs breaking show you that he is near death. But it's a pretty great to just have the entire thing, like the point of the like just crash down on you as a final send off. That I can suspend that disbelief to be like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
The part that really took me out of the movie and I couldn't suspend disbelief in GoldenEye was the scene where Natalia is the only one left and literally escapes death. It was like, am I watching Final Destination right now? Because this is ridiculous. You don't need to go to it to this extent. I understand that she's like almost gonna die and she needs to live, but goddamn.
I love that I'm being forced to describe the plausibility of GoldenEye when we're watching Mortal Kombat and this guy's got a fucking metal spider thing that comes out of his palm.
But exactly, that's the thing. It's like they're going to another realm.
Okay, and fighting, I will say this. I agree.
She's just supposed to be some woman working in a factory, and then
the logic inherent. You're right. As Connor, I think, put it best. Your disbelief is checked at the door. You're never like, but could this happen? I will say from a different point. Man, oh man, did the CGI take me out. Like, GoldenEye has a lot of good miniature work. It has a lot of good practical stunt work mixed in. Yeah, the Soviet cars that he's driving a tank over look like they're made out of, like, soda cans, the way they crumble. But, like, whatever. Mortal Kombat, there's that little lizard thing that follows him. There's the stuff that comes out of people's hands. There's the ice effects. That all is so bad, even for 1995.
The ice wasn't that bad.
I just was watching it and I was
Reptile
like,
was bad.
this is ridiculous.
I felt like the things out of the hands weren't that bad. But also, what I will say about both these movies is they're video game movies. So they're not supposed to be good movies. So like I said, I was entertained during both these movies. Before we go into the criteria and check off who got what and whatnot, I will say this. Mortal Kombat is a great game turned into a bad movie.
Leonard's reading off his phone.
And the truest essence of a great video game movie. You know what I'm saying? GoldenEye is just a bad movie, but is a great action thriller bad movie that was turned into a great video game.
We've got our first middle finger of the podcast, listener.
So I guess let's go back and talk about these criteria and see how we feel.
Let's see how we go. We'll go through them. Any disagreements, in which Leonard and I will have many. I can't believe I have to pretend that GoldenEye is on the same level as Mortal Kombat, a movie so incomprehensible and shitty.
You chose
the
it,
Power
my friend.
Rangers movie.
You chose it, my friend.
The Power Rangers movie is a better Mortal Kombat movie than fucking Mortal Kombat. But
I don't think so.
I was thinking with all the like I was like,
see,
this is
where
Power
the prompt
Rangers.
is going to get you this time, Quinn.
No,
you
no.
went with your heart like I've done in the past, and it failed me.
Listen, let's just go through it, okay? First criteria, pop culture.
Pop culture.
Mortal Kombat has a lot of pop culture, so
So
does James Bond.
I feel like this is a wash, honestly.
Connor,
What are
do
your
you
feelings
think?
on pop culture?
What stuff was like, this was from this, or like, what do you think in terms of pop cultural imprint today? And you can interpret that however you like.
You know, if we need to hold this one as a tiebreaker, that's fine, because I do agree there's a lot of pop culture in both. I feel like my instinct would be to lean towards Mortal Kombat for all of the quotes and the muse and like that main theme song, and those are the big things for me. But GoldenEye is also GoldenEye, and a lot of the same James Bond stuff that we still see today was recognizable then. So I think a slight edge to Mortal Kombat for me.
That's fine. I'm going to throw in just in terms I think the future of the video game, specifically the first-person shooter, a lot of that DNA is in GoldenEye. Mortal Kombat, two people just fighting, those games.
I don't know. That's still very big today. Like
What game is the most popular version of that?
Street Fighter.
What?
Probably Street Fighter.
So a game that existed 30 years ago? Like,
I think Mortal... Oh, you're talking about as far as... I mean, there are so many side-scrolling that video games that try to mimic what Mortal Kombat did, and the fact that Mortal Kombat was like the first one to show blood and like gruesome like fatalities and stuff. It was also very much a pioneer.
certainly the first game where you could ever rip someone's full spinal column out of their body.
Okay, so next criteria is how well does it hold up?
I think I got you here.
I don't see.
The
I
Jam-
feel like they both don't.
But
yours
GoldenEye
doesn't
is
hold up
self-aware.
in different.
GoldenEye is self-aware, and they're dealing with a character from the 60s. Mortal Kombat, I'm just going to go at you hard, Leonard. Mortal Kombat, Sonya winds up being a damsel in distress. They literally tie her to a her legs and arms are tied up, and she's in a dungeon, and her hair is all blown out for no reason. And then Princess Kitana, yes, she's helpful to Liu Kang, but basically, as I said, they both like win a woman at the end of this movie. Natalia is a Bond girl, quote unquote. She is a fully developed character. She gets out of her own problems. She has her own skills that she brings. She's not a typical damsel in distress. Connor, I'll throw this one to you as well.
I'm just gonna say this. I didn't get to make my
All right,
piece
go
about
make it.
GoldenEye,
I think I made it for you.
which is a character who fucks men and kills them with her while during sex.
Yeah.
So she's totally in control of that. She's killing
She's crazy.
men.
Also, I just got a quick question for you guys. Do you guys like being scratched during sex? Because fuck that. I don't like pain. She was wild. She was crazy.
Famke Johnson can do that as long as I'm okay with that. Yes, I am okay with
All right, well, then here's a question. Hear me out. If you know you could bust a nut like that, you know what I'm saying, and probably have the best sex you ever had,
But
would you
die.
have sex with her?
But you die.
Would it be worth it?
Question: how long's it been since I had sex last? Because if we're talking now, there's a chance that I spring for it.
I mean,
I can't believe you would allege that the character Xenia Onatop is sexist, Leonard. I don't.
If 2021 continues to the same trend of 2021, fuck it, I'll go out that way. You know what I'm saying?
She is.
I have a question.
Please.
The category. I want to clarify the category first. It's which holds up better. Is that the category?
Yeah. How well does it hold up?
And this is just as a movie as a whole, right?
It can be, yes, like as far as like culturally and like, society, not culturally, but like
culturally we would reserve for pop culture. But yeah, like how well do you think it holds up if you were watching these movies with someone who'd never seen either and they were like, what do you think you'd have more moments where you'd have to go like, this is from the,
it's also the substance and the cinematography. And
sure. Yeah, it can be, it doesn't have to be like what's aged poorly.
As we've said a couple times, they are, while you do have to suspend disbelief for both movies, I also have different expectations for both, but I still think being said, I have to give this one to GoldenEye.
Yes. Okay. All right, so we're one on
the top. And number 3, man, oh man. I still always think about Samuel L. Jackson, but he's no longer relevant.
We keep mentioning Samuel L. Jackson.
We're going to stop talking about Samuel L. Jackson.
No, it's okay, but
Gary Oldman.
Was Gary Oldman in this film? That's the third criteria.
Film. He was surprisingly not in either one of these films.
Nope.
I feel like he would have accepted to be in either one of these films.
Who do you think he'd have been in Mortal Kombat?
Conner, let's go to Conner on this.
All right, sure.
Who do you think Gary Oldman would be in Mortal Kombat? I think.
I would want him to be Goro, but he'd probably be Raiden.
Yeah, he'd be Raiden for sure.
I was thinking Raiden as well. I mean, he was younger at this point, so I guess
true.
Like I don't think he has the. I don't know that he could be anyone else. Yeah, he'd have to be. I mean, Gary Oldman has also taken some early 90s, like, do you need to play a Rastafarian kind of, like, weird choices? Yeah. So
he could be Shang Tsung.
I could see a bad version where
they could have done
Shang Tsung.
The dude who played Shang Tsung, apparently Shang Tsung's supposed to be a lot older. But, like, when they were, like, doing the casting, they were like, nah, this is who we want. And when he auditioned, he came in, like, costume and, like, auditioned standing on top of a chair, and they just cast him.
Did everyone who got in this movie lie about it? Did everyone in this movie have to pull a fast one on the producers to get put in?
And they were just like, we're just going to make him younger. Okay, so who would Gary Oldman be in GoldenEye?
006, Alec Trevelyan, absolutely. I think Sean Bean is great, but I think there's only one logical... I mean, I guess maybe he could be like a Zukovsky, but I think Gary Oldman was around, in his 40s, sort of like Pierce Brosnan was in this movie. Pierce Brosnan looks great for being a guy in his 40s, but I think he would have been a great Bond villain. I'm surprised Gary Oldman has not been a Bond villain.
Yeah, I think that he would have been great as 006 because they could have also spun it into some sort of like, he was also James Bond's mentor slightly. Mm-hmm. Like they could spin more of that element into their relationship as opposed to what they actually had. But yeah, that would have been fun.
Okay, he also could have maybe played. He could have been a cool M.
Yeah, that would have been a different. I love the Judi Dench direction, but I think it would have been obviously different if you have another guy. But
you know what I think would have been great is if he did the same accent that Alan Cumming did and was the hacker. That would be really funny.
Oh shit!
That would be funny to me.
Okay,
I am invincible.
That was great.
As always, nobody gets points for this round because Gary Oldman was not in either of these movies. But I think we've tapped.
Okay,
exactly
now
who
let's look at these. Ooh, these statistics, boy. Number 4 is statistics.
This will also be where I unload a couple quick games on you guys for you and
statistics
Connor
and
to play. But
yes,
run through the stats, please, Leonard.
All right. So IMDb score for Mortal Kombat, a 5.8 out of 10.
Way too
Tomatoes, 48%. But
wow.
good old Google users, they know what they're there for. When they go to watch the movie Mortal Kombat, they know what the fuck to expect. And they got a 90% on Google.
Wow.
90% with Google users.
What the hell?
I love that.
No, first of all, you trying to legitimize Google ratings, which no one uses?
Hold on. You're about to get your Google ratings as well. For GoldenEye, 7.2 out of 10.
Correct.
Rotten Tomatoes, 79%. I don't know how the fuck it's that high.
Because it's good.
And then with the Google users, because they know what they're expecting and what they're watching,
105%.
90% as well.
Wow.
I know. The budget for GoldenEye, god damn, is $60 million is estimated.
Okay, that's
actually not that high.
Not that high.
Yeah.
I mean, close to $100 million movie back in '95, probably, but not that crazy.
Let me see how much it made.
Wow.
Okay.
Wait.
This
Before
is
you
where
say,
I'm
going to say I think I might know this. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to say $330 million worldwide.
$330 million worldwide. Let me tell you right now, it is $352 million.
Ooh,
very close, sir. Now, this is where I think Mortal Kombat might win on the stats because it only cost $18 million.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Which is crazy because where they were filming, it was so remote, like in Indonesia, that they had to carry all their equipment on canoes to film.
Wow.
To film this. It only cost $18 million.
All right, but what did it make?
$122 million.
What? Wow, that's not bad.
That's kind of comparable.
It was
almost
the number one movie in America for 3 weeks in a row.
Okay.
Incredible.
Which is very surprising to me.
If you triple the budget and the box office, that almost comes out to be a wash.
It really does.
GoldenEye.
Actually, it does.
It's
That's
almost
impressive.
exactly the same.
That literally it is. That's crazy.
So
Go ahead and so I guess that's a watch. Let's play some games.
I don't know if that's whole thing a wash. We'll come to close out stats after these games, but maybe you can. So there have been almost 25. The next Bond movie that comes out will be the 25th James Bond movie, and both Leonard and Conner have expressed they're not very.
We're not Bonds in the East.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just going to ask you some questions, Leonard. I want to see how well you know just general James Bond culture. They're not necessarily GoldenEye specific. And Conner, you can jump in as well.
Cool.
This one, I'll just start with an easy one. Which of these 4 titles is not a James Bond movie title?
Okay.
So I'm going to give you 3 real ones, and you're going to tell me which one's wrong.
Confident in this.
All right. Diamonds Are Forever.
I know that's one.
Death by Murder.
Okay.
Quantum of Solace.
That's one.
Yeah.
A View to a Kill.
A View to a Kill
Is that your answer?
is not one of the 4.
Conner, what do you think?
Just to be different, I'll guess the second one. Something about murder.
That was my second choice. But
Conner is correct. Obviously, Death by Murder is not.
You never know, man.
But
You never know.
I will give you that A View to a Kill is equally stupid.
Yeah, that was.
pretty
I
wild.
like what you did there, and you threw in a new one, so you just gave us a freebie. Thank you.
Quantum of Solace is worse, I think, than Death by Murder, but Quantum of Solace is an actual title. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit more specific. Not meaning any offense, but let's be real. Xenia Onatopp, there's a lot of ridiculous Bond girl names over the years.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you 3 that are real and 1 that is fake, and I need you guys to tell me which is which. Here we go. Pussy Galore. All right. Christmas Jones.
I know that's one.
A lot of Vagina. And Octopussy.
A lot of vagina.
I feel like that's an Austin Powers one, but What was the second one again?
Christmas Jones.
I'll guess that because it's hilarious. But I bet it's
Christmas
real.
Jones is one of them. For some reason, I remember that.
It's gonna
Christmas
be.
Jones is real. A lot of Vagina is an Austin Powers.
I knew it.
I knew it.
All right, I got one more of these because there's so many.
All right, good, because I have a bunch of random little trivia questions.
All right.
And if you were paying attention to the movie.
We're looking for the fake James Bond girl name, the one that is not real. Plenty O'Toole, Honey Rider, Kissy Suzuki, or Vulva Matrice.
Vulva Matrice is my guess. I can also look at Quinn while he said this.
I could not keep a straight face for Vulva Matrice. That is
I'm
obvious.
gonna side with Leonard on this one.
Yeah, you guys are right. All right, I'm out of games. Well
Thank
done,
you,
Leonard.
thank you.
2 for 3.
Okay,
are fun.
okay. I just wanted to see if you were paying attention.
I wasn't.
What does Shang Tsung say after Sub-Zero freezes that shirtless warrior? These are pretty easy.
What does he say after?
What does he say? He freezes him. He blows. He hits the wall.
I know.
Explodes.
I know.
Head rolls to the feet of Shang Tsung.
Do I get
What
to
does he
guess,
say?
or is it just Quinn?
I guess Quinn is. I'll put you up against each other.
Okay. He
Actually,
says,
I let Connor
flawless
go
victory.
with you. Flawless victory. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
All right. How much were Johnny Cage's sunglasses?
Oh, I know this one, Connor. Do you know this?
No, I don't.
They were $500 sunglasses.
Ding, ding, ding.
Big spender.
All right. How old was Katana?
Oh, 1,000?
I'm gonna say I remember them saying she's like thousands of years old or something. I'm trying to remember if they said an exact age, so I'll just side with Connor and say 1,000.
10,000.
10,000.
Which is wild.
That is a funny
She
moment.
doesn't look
that-
a day over 1,000.
I do love that moment in the movie where Johnny Cage is like, dude, she's like 10,000 or whatever, and Liu Kang's like, so?
That's a real man right there. Okay. What caused Liu Kang to lose his way? It was said by one of the monks.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh. I think I got it, but I'll give you some time.
Was it his brother's death? I mean, like, was it
It's
fast food?
because he says something about how it's like American life, but like watching too much TV.
Too much TV.
Why would you not say, if you're making a video game movie, why wouldn't you say too many video games?
I know, right? This is the last one of the trivia, and then I'm just going to do one more after that. What does Johnny Cage compare The Outer World to?
Oh.
This is gonna be funny, and I can't believe I don't know it.
Detroit?
Ooh, I like that. I like that. But high school.
Oh, right. He says it feels like he's being back in high school because everyone wants to kick his ass.
All right.
Shit. Johnny Cage. Wow.
I'm going to name you 4 people, and you have to tell me 3 of these people were apparently supposed to be in this movie, but then they were not.
Then they read the script.
And who was the 4th? Okay. Tom Cruise. Jean-Claude Van Damme. Steven Spielberg. Cameron Diaz.
So I'm telling you who was not supposed to be in, like
who was one of these people who were not an option, who was going to be in the movie?
Spielberg.
What was the first one?
Tom Cruise.
Can you give me the second one?
It was Tom Cruise,
Van Damme.
Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Spielberg, Cameron Diaz.
I'll say Jean-Claude Van Damme. I feel like he's been in a lot.
Jean-Claude Van Damme was the original choice for Johnny Cage.
Oh.
But he filmed Street Fighter instead,
Dang.
which is one of my favorite movies. Cameron Diaz was booked as Sonya Blade
Whoa.
after Bridget Wilson Sampras chose to do Billy Madison instead of Mortal Kombat because the audition process took too long, so she chose to do Billy Madison, but then Cameron Diaz broke her wrist while training for the movie, and Billy Madison ended in time where she flew directly from the set of Billy Madison and flew to shoot Mortal Kombat the next day, had no training at all, and had to like train and like learn. That's why
It shows.
Her choreographed scenes look very bad. Everybody,
Yeah.
all the other choreographed scenes look very good, but hers was very bad, and she actually dislocated her shoulder.
I contend that if you watch Billy Madison, in some scenes, Veronica Vaughn is giving real Mortal Kombat energy.
Finally, Steven Spielberg actually was supposed to be in the movie, and that was supposed to be him in the chair, and he was excited about it. But because of scheduling conflicts, he did not get to do it.
Shit.
Therefore, they got someone who looked just like Steven Spielberg.
Wow.
And finally, Tom Cruise once tried to, he was filming another movie and tried to walk onto the set of Mortal Kombat, but one of the medics wouldn't let him.
Incredible. The set medics must have just not liked Tom Cruise because that's not their job. That's too funny.
Yeah, man. I feel
Too
like,
dangerous, Mr. Cruise.
I feel like
also,
I the only last thing I wanted to add was that I felt like Johnny Cage was truly a perfect combo of Matthew McConaughey and Tom Cruise as one. Is like
Yeah,
what
he
he
did a
felt
great
like
job.
to me.
and he also did all of his own stunts. Like everybody did all their own stunts, which was why I felt like
Dang.
the fight choreography looked so much better in this film. Like, I felt like they knew they were doing a fighting film because it's a fighting game, and they had to make sure that it looked good, and I thought it did.
That's Leonard getting extra points in. I like that.
Anyways, statistics, I don't know if that's a wash. I feel like that's another wash. So we're going to come down to...
I think the box
fifth.
office, the ratings across the board, the ranking... the box office was a wash, but I think across the board, the rankings were...
You also did very bad at the game.
GoldenEye.
You did very bad at the game. And
All right.
once again, I will put this out there. GoldenEye was a movie first, and then it became a video game. So, obviously, it's going to get rated high. That's all I'm going to say.
Talk to... fine, but in terms of defining it as a video game movie, talk to anyone about GoldenEye and see how long it takes them to bring up the video game.
I'll give GoldenEye stats, even though I feel like Mortal Kombat has probably sold more units over time because they've had more games.
Totally.
GoldenEye only had GoldenEye and then the GoldenEye for the Wii. So, whatever. I'll give you stats. But now it's all going to come down to the fifth and final criteria.
Well, not necessarily. I'm leading 2-1, so if you win this, maybe you would tie it up.
Well, Connor's obviously going to choose, but
don't
we
know
get
what
to
Connor
argue
did.
our points on the fifth and final criteria on which one is the better, because we're getting long here. Which
I
one
think
is the better?
I think we've put forward our argument. So, I mean, if you have a last thought, then by all means. But I'm happy to throw this to what Connor thinks. I think it kind of comes down to what do you define as a video game movie. But I think it's totally fine and fair for Connor to consider what he enjoyed more, what was better.
You
whatever.
don't have a final statement, a final argument?
Except no substitutes. 007, GoldenEye. I don't know. I don't have anything concrete.
Once again, Mortal Kombat is a great video game that was made into a bad movie.
I would say the strongest argument for you, Leonard, if I can offer you a line of reasoning, is that video game movies are thought of as being fucking terrible, and this movie is fucking terrible. And I think that so you could argue that it lives up to the genre because it's
That's
bad.
what I was saying.
But I didn't want to do that to Connor, who took time out of his week to
Well,
watch
that was
two
your fault.
movies.
You chose.
So I tried to give him a
You chose
good
a bad
movie.
movie for the prompt, my friend. Anyways, you know what? He actually did it for me. So that's what I was essentially going to say. Connor, it's up to you. Give us a little how you feel, your thought.
Connor knows that video games are art, and their movie adaptations don't have to be bad just because they're based on video
We'll
games.
see. Right now, just to let you know, Connor, in the season we are tied 1-1.
Wow.
Quinn won
Don't
the
tell him
first.
that shit.
Quinn won the first episode. Christmas movie. I won the second episode. Stoner movie. It is now video game movie, and it is tell us your thought process and who you believe is the winner.
Take as long or as short as you need.
I'm realizing as I was about to just to ask for clarification on how I should judge it, I realized that I should just
Subjective.
judge it how I want.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
I just get to pick a winner. I do have to say I really don't think I could have watched these two movies could have lived up to what they were supposed to be any better. I really was so happy about that for both of them. And I don't mean to be Mr. Everybody's a winner. It's all good. But because I truly did enjoy both for what they were. But if I have to pick the most visceral experience from this whole thing and the one that's just going to just be ingrained in my brain, it's Mortal Kombat today. So congratulations, Leonard. Quinn, I'm so sorry. But it also was a small tiny factor is that I do appreciate that it was a game made into a movie. There's just a whole set of issues you got to deal with, and I'm really proud of them.
Oh my God. I'm not even really happy about winning because I know we got a lot longer to go. But just the fact to see Quinn's spirit broken on a movie that means so much to him makes me so happy because in the first episode of this season, my spirit was broken. And I was livid when Coming to America did not win. Is this a Christmas movie episode?
Because it wasn't. Yes, it wasn't.
And this was not, your choice was not the better video game movie in this instance.
I'm sorry I didn't
according to
pick
Connor.
Resident Evil.
Quinn, it's okay. I understand your pain, Quinn.
That technically just makes us 2-2. Gary Oldman is not in any of the
Quinn,
movies.
the way season 2 is going, we let the judge decide. And
we let Connor decide all of these points, and it tallies up to 2-2. I'm just saying it'd be nice if we had a Mortal Kombat here. We could just play a round of Mortal Kombat to fight for the winner.
I mean, I have it on Xbox.
You have Mortal Kombat in the Xbox?
I had the game. I would have to download it on my Xbox, but while we're
takes
recording
way
the
too
trailer
long.
that we need to record, we can download it. But once again, Connor has chosen the winner. It is Mortal Kombat. Thank you very much, Connor. It's been a blast having you on the podcast.
Thank you, Connor.
This is a very long episode, but we were having a good time. Tell us where people can find you out there.
Yeah, and first, of course, thank you both for having me. This has been so much fun. It was really fun to just have to watch 2 movies because I don't watch enough movies anymore. I watch TV or I play video games, so here we are. As far as my shit, you can follow me on Twitter at Conner_McCabe. You can check out my podcast, Call Me By Your Game, which these 2 gentlemen were nice enough to talk about earlier. It's a show where I bring on a guest to talk about a video game that was special to them from their past. So if you like video games and warm feelings and just feeling fuzzy, check us out. And I'm also on Twitch. I've been streaming more, so you can follow me at twitch.tv/consiscool69. But that's about it for me. Thanks again, fellas.
The Call Me By Your Game podcast is a great podcast. I've been on. I had a blast.
Thank you.
It was a very fun time.
What a great episode. FIFA 06, Road to the World Cup, baby.
Yeah, Connor, you're a saint.
Yeah, no, Connor, thank you for watching both of these movies and giving your impartial though flawed analysis.
I don't like your tone there, Quinn. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it.
I'll next time you need a team on Tuesday Night Thunder,
You might snub us, right?
I might not get back to your text in time.
He doesn't want to play a hacker again.
No, but seriously, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for being on, and yeah, please everybody check out Connor on all of his various platforms. He's a hilarious guy, and I think that's it. I think we've exhausted. We don't know what the prompt for next week is going to be, right?
Yeah, we don't know. You'll find out.
We'll figure it out. We'll announce it. We will have a prompt. I need to get back in the win column. I've lost 2 in a row now, and yeah,
see you
at the end for Burbank, Leonard.
From Burbank. We'll see you at the
For Burbank.
Oh, for Burbank. We'll see you at the GameStop.
Goodbye.